The cold spring air of Los Angeles carried the scent of expensive perfume and champagne through the grand ballroom of the Regency Hotel. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls above the gathered crowd of wealthy donors, politicians, and celebrities. Everyone was dressed in their finest, tuxedos sharp as knives, evening gowns that whispered against marble floors. The atmosphere hummed with self-satisfaction, the kind that only comes from people who believe they're doing something noble while being photographed for it. At the center of it all stood Marcus Blackwell, 52 years old, silver hair swept back perfectly, jaw strong and angular. His custom-tailored Tom Ford tuxedo fit him like a second skin. Everything about Marcus screamed success. The Patek Philippe watch on his wrist, the confidence in his posture, the practiced smile that revealed teeth too white to be natural. He stood on a raised stage bathed in golden light, while a slideshow behind him displayed images of smiling children, newly built schools in impoverished neighborhoods, and medical clinics in areas ravaged by poverty. The screen showed numbers: $127 million donated over 5 years, $40 million to children's hospitals, $35 million to orphanages for disabled children. The audience applauded. Some wiped tears from their eyes. A Society columnist in the third row was already typing on her phone. Modern-day saint walks among us. Marcus raised his hand, and the room fell silent. His voice was smooth, rehearsed to perfection. Thank you all for being here tonight. I stand before you, not as someone special, but as someone who understands the responsibility that comes with wealth. He paused, letting the words settle. I have been blessed beyond measure in this life. I built my real estate empire from nothing, and now I have more than I could ever spend. But what's the point of wealth if it doesn't serve a higher purpose? More applause. Cameras flashed. Marcus's smile widened, but his hands gripped the podium just a fraction too tightly. 5 years ago, Marcus continued, I made a decision. I decided that my legacy wouldn't be measured in properties owned or dollars earned, but in lives changed. That's why I've dedicated the majority of my fortune to charitable causes, especially those serving our most vulnerable children who face challenges we can barely imagine. His voice dropped slightly, taking on a softer, more intimate tone. Children with disabilities, children born into circumstances they didn't choose, children who deserve every chance to thrive, despite the odds stacked against them. The room was silent now, hanging on every word. Marcus's eyes grew distant, almost glazed. These children, they represent something profound to me. When I see their faces, when I visit the facilities we've built, I see hope, I see resilience, I see ... His voice cracked, just barely. I see what really matters in this world. Standing near the bar, partially obscured by a marble column, Dr. Arthur Vance watched everything. Arthur was 55, with graying hair and sharp, observant eyes that missed nothing. He wore a modest dark suit, expensive enough not to look out of place, but subdued enough not to draw attention. He wasn't here for the champagne or the networking. He'd been invited by the Henderson Foundation, a legitimate charity organization he'd helped with fraud detection 6 months earlier. They'd insisted he come, said it would be an inspiring evening. Arthur had agreed mostly out of politeness, expecting to spend an hour making small talk before slipping out. But now, watching Marcus Blackwell, Arthur couldn't look away. His eyes tracked every micro-movement. The way Marcus's right hand kept drifting to his left ring finger, touching the bare skin where a wedding band should be. The slight tremor in his jaw when he mentioned children with disabilities, genuine emotion, but paired with something else. Fear, guilt. The pattern of his blinking increased exactly 3 times during specific phrases. Vulnerable children, circumstances they didn't choose, and most notably, what really matters in this world. Arthur had spent 30 years studying human behavior. He'd worked with the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, consulted for major corporations on detecting deception in high-stakes negotiations, and now operated independently, helping people who needed someone to see what others missed. He could read pupil dilation from across a room, could identify micro-expressions that lasted less than a fifth of a second, could detect stress patterns in voice pitch that most people's conscious minds never registered. And right now, every instinct he possessed was screaming that Marcus Blackwell was hiding something massive. Marcus concluded his speech with a promise. "I will continue this work until my last breath. Every child deserves to know they matter. Every child deserves to be loved, protected, and given every opportunity to succeed. That is my mission. That is my redemption." The word redemption hung in the air like smoke. The audience erupted in standing ovation. People rushed forward to shake Marcus's hand. Arthur watched as Marcus received their praise with practiced humility, always making eye contact, always touching their arms or shoulders in a gesture of connection, always nodding with apparent deep sincerity. But Arthur also noticed something else. When a woman approached Marcus and mentioned her adopted daughter, "She has cerebral palsy, and your foundation changed her life," Marcus's pupils constricted sharply. His smile remained fixed, but his breathing pattern shifted from his chest to his throat, a sign of suppressed panic. He touched his ring finger again, this unconscious, self-soothing gesture that revealed far more than his words ever could. Arthur set down his untouched champagne glass and moved through the crowd with quiet purpose. He'd learned long ago that the truth often hid in plain sight, buried under layers of performance and carefully constructed image. And Marcus Blackwell, for all his polish and charisma, was performing. The question was, what was he hiding, and why? By the time Arthur reached the edge of the stage, Marcus had been swept away by admirers toward a private reception area. A security guard stood at the velvet rope, clipboard in hand. Arthur approached calmly. "Dr. Arthur Vance," he said, showing his invitation. "I'm with the Henderson Foundation. I need to speak with Mr. Blackwell briefly about a potential collaboration." The guard checked his list, nodded, and unhooked the rope. "Through those doors, sir. He'll be in the Platinum Lounge." The Platinum Lounge was quieter, more exclusive. About 30 people mingled here, the inner circle of wealth and influence. Marcus stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the glittering Los Angeles skyline, deep in conversation with a city councilman and a prominent surgeon. Arthur grabbed a glass of water from a passing waiter and positioned himself nearby, close enough to observe but not intrude. Marcus was telling a story about visiting an orphanage in south-central LA. The little girl couldn't walk, but her smile could light up the entire room, he said. His voice was warm, his gestures open and expansive. "She told me she wanted to be a dancer someday. Can you imagine the courage it takes to dream like that?" The surgeon and councilman made sympathetic sounds. Marcus continued, "I told her that if she works hard in her physical therapy, maybe one day she'll find her own way to dance. And you know what she said to me?" He paused for effect. "She said, 'I already dance in my dreams, and that's real enough for me.' Perfect story, perfect delivery, perfect emotional beat." But Arthur saw the tell when Marcus quoted the little girl. His eyes broke contact for a fraction of a second, glancing down and to the left, the direction people's eyes typically move when fabricating or reconstructing events that didn't happen exactly as described. The story might be loosely based on truth, but it had been polished, refined, turned into a tool for emotional manipulation. More interesting was what happened next. A woman in an emerald dress approached the group. "Marcus, darling, that was a magnificent speech. My husband and I want to increase our donation to your foundation. We were thinking another $500,000 specifically for the children's disability programs. Marcus's face lit up with gratitude. That's incredibly generous, Patricia. Those programs are closest to my heart. But as he said closest to my heart, his right hand moved again to that bare ring finger, rubbing it in a circular motion. Self-soothing, self-reassurance, an unconscious tell that suggested. The topic caused him internal distress despite his positive words. Arthur decided it was time. He stepped forward smoothly, entering the conversational circle with the kind of confident ease that suggested he belonged there. Mr. Blackwell, forgive the interruption. Dr. Arthur Vance, I wanted to personally thank you for the work you're doing. Marcus turned, his public smile activating instantly. Of course, Dr. Vance. Any friend of tonight's event is a friend of mine. He extended his hand. Arthur shook it, noting the slight dampness of Marcus's palm, the firmness that was just a degree too firm, compensating for nervousness. I work with behavioral analysis and human psychology, Arthur said casually. I consult for various organizations on understanding what drives people to make the choices they make. Your commitment to children with disabilities is remarkable. Very specific focus. Very ... personal. The word personal landed like a stone in still water. Marcus's smile didn't falter, but his left eyelid twitched once. Well, I believe in focusing resources where they can make the biggest impact. These children need advocates. Absolutely, Arthur agreed. Though I'm curious, forgive me if this is too direct, what drew you specifically to this cause? Most philanthropists diversify their giving. You've concentrated almost 60% of your charitable work on orphanages and care facilities for children with disabilities. That level of focus usually indicates a deeply personal connection. The surgeon and councilman had drifted away, sensing a shift in the conversation's energy. Patricia, in the emerald's dress, lingered for a moment, then excused herself. Now it was just Marcus and Arthur, standing by the window with the city lights sprawling below them. Marcus's jaw tightened imperceptibly. I suppose I just ... I see their struggle, and I want to help. Isn't that enough? Of course it is, Arthur said gently. But I've spent my career studying human motivation. In my experience, when someone commits this level of resources and emotional energy to a specific cause, there's usually a story behind it, a personal experience that opened their eyes, a moment that changed everything. Marcus took a sip of his champagne, buying time. Arthur watched his throat as he swallowed 3 distinct motions, instead of one smooth gulp. Anxiety. His eyes scanned the room briefly, looking for escape routes or intervention. Finding none, he returned his gaze to Arthur. Sometimes, Marcus said carefully, we're moved by what we see in the world. We don't need personal trauma to care about suffering. True, Arthur replied, but you said something interesting in your speech. You used the word redemption, not purpose or mission or passion. Redemption. That's a very specific word. It implies something to be redeemed from, a debt to be paid, a wrong to be righted. Marcus's hand drifted toward his ring finger again, but this time he caught himself mid-motion, forcing his hand down to his side. Too late. Arthur had seen it. He filed the information away, adding it to the growing picture in his mind. I think you're reading too much into word choice, Marcus said, attempting a light laugh that came out strained. I'm not a perfect man, Dr. Vance. None of us are. We all have regrets. That doesn't mean you're not married, Arthur interrupted softly. But you were once, and you keep touching where your wedding ring used to be. That's not just a divorced man's habit. That's the physical memory of something you removed deliberately, something you wanted gone, but can't forget. Marcus's face had gone pale now, the confident mask cracking at the edges. I don't know what you think I'm not accusing you of anything, Arthur said, his voice warm, almost compassionate. "I'm simply observing. You speak about children with disabilities with genuine emotion. I can see that. But it's paired with guilt. Deep, heavy guilt that you carry like a stone." When that woman mentioned her adopted daughter with cerebral palsy, your pupils constricted in stress response. When you talk about children who deserve every chance to thrive, your breathing becomes shallow. When you quote the little girl who wants to dance, you glance down and to the left, indicating constructive memory rather than pure recall. Marcus said nothing. His hands had formed fists at his sides. Arthur continued, "Gentler now. You had a child with a disability, didn't you? And something happened, something you've been trying to fix ever since, through every donation, every speech, every building with your name on it." The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Below them, Los Angeles glittered in oblivious beauty. Inside the lounge, laughter and conversation created a distant murmur. But in their small bubble by the window, the air felt thick and suffocating. Finally, Marcus spoke. His voice was barely above a whisper. "How? Patterns," Arthur said. "The human mind and body reveal what the mouth refuses to say. You've built an impressive facade, Mr. Blackwell. You almost had me convinced. But certain behaviors don't lie. The way you touch your ring finger, the specific focus of your charity, the word redemption, the stress response to adoption, the guilt embedded in every word you speak about these children. It all points to one conclusion: you abandoned a child, most likely a child with special needs, and you've spent years trying to buy your way back to peace. If you enjoyed this deep psychological analysis and want to see how this powerful story unfolds with shocking twists and profound life lessons, please subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. It helps us bring more life-changing stories to people who need to hear them. Now, let's continue. Marcus's legs seemed to lose their strength. He reached out and steadied himself against the window frame, his perfectly composed exterior finally shattering. His breathing came in short, ragged bursts. For a long moment, he stood there, staring at his reflection in the glass, a wealthy, powerful man who suddenly looked 20 years older. "Her name was Emily," he whispered. Arthur remained silent, giving Marcus the space to speak. He'd learned long ago that once the dam broke, the truth would flow on its own. All he had to do was stand witness to it. Marcus turned away from the window, unable to look at Arthur directly, his eyes fixed on some distant point across the room. 28 years ago, I was 24, fresh out of business school, had just secured my first major real estate deal. I was going to conquer the world. My girlfriend at the time, Rachel, she was 22. We'd been together 2 years. She got pregnant. His voice was flat now, emotionless, as if he were reading someone else's story. We weren't ready. I wasn't ready. But we decided to keep the baby. I even bought a ring. Was planning to propose when she was 6 months along. He paused, swallowing hard. Then the ultrasound at 20 weeks showed abnormalities. Severe spinal bifida. The doctors said the baby would likely never walk. Would need constant medical care, multiple surgeries. A lifetime of challenges. Arthur's face remains neutral, non-judgmental. He simply listened. I panicked. Marcus continued, his voice beginning to crack. I was 24 years old, trying to build an empire, and suddenly I was facing a future of medical bills, special needs care, a life completely different from what I'd imagined. Rachel wanted to keep her. She said we'd figure it out together. She said love would be enough. His laugh was bitter, self-loathing, but I didn't believe her. I thought it would destroy us, destroy me, destroy everything I'd worked for. He finally looked at Arthur, and his eyes were swimming with unshed tears. I told Rachel I couldn't do it. I told her I wasn't ready to be a father, especially not to a child who would need so much. I gave her money, $50,000, from my first land. I told her to make whatever decision she needed to make, but I couldn't be part of it. And she kept the baby, Arthur said quietly. Marcus nodded. She did. Emily was born 3 months later. I wasn't there. I'd already moved to a different city, thrown myself into my work. Rachel raised her alone for 6 months, but she couldn't manage it. Single mother, special needs baby, no support system. So she made the hardest choice anyone can make. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. She put Emily up for adoption. Found a family that specialized in caring for children with disabilities. A couple in their 40s who couldn't have children of their own and had resources, patience, love to give, and you never went back, Arthur said. Not a question, a statement of fact. I told myself it was better that way, that Emily would have a better life with people who actually wanted her, who weren't terrified of her needs. I convinced myself I'd done the right thing by stepping aside. Marcus's hands were shaking now. I married someone else 5 years later, built my empire, made my first billion by 35, had everything I thought I wanted, but I couldn't forget her. He pulled out his phone with trembling fingers, scrolled through his photos, and showed Arthur an image. It was a grainy photograph, clearly old, of a tiny baby in a hospital bassinet, tubes and wires everywhere. But the baby's eyes were open, dark and alert, staring at the camera with an intensity that pierced through time. This is the only photo I have of her. Rachel sent it to me 2 days after Emily was born. I've looked at it every single day for 28 years. A tear finally escaped, rolling down his cheek. Every single day, Dr. Vance, and every single day, I've hated myself a little more. Arthur took the phone, studying the image. So you started donating, started building orphanages and funding disability programs, trying to save all the Emilys out there because you couldn't save your own. 5 years ago, my wife left me, said I was emotionally unavailable, that I was always somewhere else, even when I was right there. She was right. I was always thinking about Emily, wondering where she was, what she looked like, if she was happy, if she ever thought about me. Marcus took the phone back, staring at the photo. The day the divorce was finalized, I took off my wedding ring and I made a decision. I couldn't change what I'd done, but I could try to make up for it. So I started donating. First $10 million, then $20 million, then more. I thought if I could help enough children like Emily, maybe I could, I don't know, balance the scales somehow. But it doesn't work that way, Arthur said gently. Redemption isn't a transaction. You can't buy forgiveness from the universe by helping others if you never address the original wound. Marcus's face crumpled. I know, God help me, I know. But what am I supposed to do? Show up 28 years later and say, "Hi, I'm your biological father, the one who abandoned you before you were even born." What right do I have to disrupt her life? She has a family, real parents who raised her, loved her, were there for every surgery, every challenge, every triumph. I'm nothing to her. I'm worse than nothing. I'm the coward who ran away. Have you ever tried to find her? Marcus shook his head. I've thought about it 1,000 times. I even hired a private investigator once, 3 years ago. Got as far as learning her adoptive family's name, the Hendersons. They live here in Los Angeles. But I couldn't go through with it. What if she's happy? What if my presence would only bring her pain? What if she looks at me with disgust and tells me I have no right to call myself her father? His voice broke completely. What if she's right? The lounge around them continued its oblivious celebration. People clinked glasses, laughed at jokes, made plans for lunch next week. None of them knew that in the corner by the window, a man was confronting the ghost that had haunted him for nearly 3 decades. Arthur studied Marcus for a long moment. He saw the genuine anguish, the self-loathing, the desperate need for absolution that no amount of money could purchase. He also saw something else, a man who had imprisoned himself in guilt for so long that he couldn't imagine a path forward. "Mr. Blackwell," Arthur said finally, "I'm going to tell you something that might be difficult to hear. Are you ready?" Marcus looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. "After what I just told you, I don't think anything could be more difficult. Your daughter doesn't need your money. She doesn't need another building with your name on it. What she might need, what she might actually want, is the truth." Arthur's voice was firm but compassionate. "You've spent 28 years running from your biggest mistake, but mistakes don't define us. What we do after the mistake, that's what defines us. And right now, you're still running." "I don't know how to stop," Marcus admitted, his voice breaking. "You stop by taking one honest step forward. You find her. You tell her the truth, not some polished, rehearsed version, but the raw, ugly truth about your fear and your cowardice and your regret. You give her the choice you never gave her before, the choice to know you or not know you, the choice to forgive or not forgive, the choice to have a relationship with her biological father or to tell you to leave and never come back." Arthur paused. "But you give her the choice. That's where redemption actually begins, not in buildings and donations, but in honesty and courage." Marcus was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was small, childlike. "What if she hates me? Then she hates you," Arthur said simply. "And you accept that consequence because it's what you earned. But what if she doesn't? What if she's spent 28 years with her own questions, her own gaps in her story? What if she's wondered about you too?" "The Hendersons," Marcus said suddenly. "You said the name of the adoptive family. You recognized it." Arthur allowed himself a small smile. "I'm here tonight as a guest of the Henderson Foundation. Your daughter's adoptive parents run a charitable organization focused on special needs advocacy. Small world, isn't it?" Marcus's eyes widened. You can find her." "I already know where she is," Arthur admitted. "I made the connection about 15 minutes into your speech. When you mentioned that specific orphanage in South Central LA, the one the Hendersons founded 25 years ago, I've been watching you carefully since then, waiting to see if my hypothesis was correct." "You've known this whole time." Marcus seemed torn between gratitude and anger. "I suspected, now I know." Arthur pulled a small business card from his jacket pocket. "I'm going to do something I don't usually do. I'm going to give you a chance. Most people never get a chance to face your past with guidance. If you're serious about stopping the running, about actually pursuing real redemption instead of performative charity, call me tomorrow. I'll help you find Emily. I'll help you prepare for the conversation. But I need to know you're truly ready." Marcus took the card with shaking hands, staring at it as if it were a life raft in a storming sea. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me because I've spent my life reading people, Mr. Blackwell. I can tell the difference between someone who's genuinely remorseful and someone who's simply sorry they got caught. You're the former. You're drowning in genuine regret. And I believe that everyone deserves a chance at honest redemption, not the fake kind bought with money, but the real kind earned through courage and truth." Arthur placed a hand briefly on Marcus's shoulder. "But the choice is yours. You can keep running, keep building monuments to your guilt, or you can stop, take one honest step forward, face your daughter, and give both of you a chance at something real." With that, Arthur turned and walked away, leaving Marcus alone by the window with his reflection, his photo of baby Emily, and a business card that felt heavier than it had any right to be. The next morning, Arthur's phone rang at 7:43 a.m. He was in his home office in Santa Monica, reviewing case notes over coffee. The number was unlisted, but he answered anyway. "Dr. Vance." The voice was hoarse, exhausted. "It's Marcus Blackwell. I didn't sleep at all last night. I need your help, please." 3 days later, Arthur sat across from Marcus in a quiet cafe in West Hollywood. Between them was a folder containing everything Arthur had learnt about Emily Henderson in the past 72 hours. He'd been thorough, but ethical, gathering only information that was publicly available or that Emily herself had shared through professional profiles and social media. Her full name is Emily Catherine Henderson, Arthur began, sliding the first document across the table. She's 28 years old. She graduated from UCLA with a degree in social work, then got her master's from USC in disability advocacy and policy. She works for a non-profit that helps families navigate the medical and educational systems for children with special needs. Marcus picked up the photo with trembling hands. It showed a young woman with dark hair, pulled back in a ponytail, warm brown eyes, and a smile that lit up her entire face. She was seated in a specialized wheelchair, speaking at what appeared to be a conference or seminar. The caption read, "Emily Henderson discusses legislative advocacy at the National Disability Rights Conference. She looks like Rachel," Marcus whispered, tears already forming. "But she has my eyes and my nose." She's accomplished, Marcus. Multiple awards for her advocacy work. She's testified before the state legislature twice on disability rights issues. She's written articles for major publications. She's in a long-term relationship with someone named David, who's a physical therapist. They've been together for 4 years. Marcus absorbed every detail like a man dying of thirst, finally finding water. She's amazing. She's everything I could have hoped for and didn't deserve. Her adoptive parents, Robert and Margaret Henderson, are both still alive and very active in her life. They're in their early 70s now. By all accounts, they gave Emily an incredible childhood, adaptive sports, inclusive education, emotional support. They never hid the fact that she was adopted. According to an interview Emily gave 2 years ago, she's always known her adoption story, and she's at peace with it. Did she ... double quotes, Marcus couldn't finish the question. Did she ever express curiosity about her biological parents? Arthur finished. Yes. In that same interview, she said she'd thought about it occasionally, especially during her teenage years. But she also said she didn't feel a burning need to search, because her real family, the ones who raised her, gave her everything she needed. However, she also said she'd be open to contact if her biological parents ever wanted to reach out, as long as they understood that Robert and Margaret would always be mum and dad. Marcus's hands were shaking so badly, he had to set down his coffee cup. What do I do? How do I even begin to approach her? Carefully, honestly, with no expectations. Arthur pulled out another document. I've drafted a letter. You don't have to use it, but it might help as a template. The key points are: acknowledge what you did, explain without excusing, express genuine regret, ask nothing of her, and make it clear that any decision about contact is entirely hers. No pressure, no manipulation, no guilt-tripping, just truth. Marcus read the draft, tears streaming down his face. This is perfect. It says everything I've wanted to say for 28 years, but never had the courage to. Then send it, Arthur said. But prepare yourself for any response. She might be curious, she might be angry, she might be indifferent, she might need time. Whatever she feels is valid, and you have to respect it. I know. Marcus wiped his eyes. Whatever happens, Dr. Vance, thank you. You've given me something I haven't had in 3 decades. Hope. Real hope. Not the fake hope I've been manufacturing through donations and publicity, but actual, terrifying, genuine hope. One more thing, Arthur added. Your charitable work. Don't stop it. It's doing real good in the world, but maybe adjust your motivation. Do it because it's right, not because you're trying to buy forgiveness. And if you do meet Emily, don't lead with it. Don't try to impress her with your philanthropy. She doesn't need a savior with a checkbook. She needs, if she needs anything from you at all, a father who's finally brave enough to be honest. Marcus nodded, clutching the letter draft like a sacred text. I'll send it tonight. No more delays. No more running. 12 days passed in agonizing silence. Marcus called Arthur 3 times, convinced that Emily had received the letter and chosen not to respond. Arthur counseled patience, reminding him that processing such information took time. On the 13th day, Marcus's phone buzzed with an email notification. The sender, an hashtag X45, a number 109, a number 105, and hashtag X6C, a number 121, and hash X2E, a number 72, a number 101, a number 101, a number 100, a number 111, a number 101, a number 114, a number 115, a number 100 and hash by 2E, an X4D, a number 83, a number 87, a number 87, a number 103, a number 109, an hashtag X61, a number 109, an X6F, a number 99, an X6F, an hashtag X6D. The subject line: "Thank you for your honesty." Marcus called Arthur immediately, his voice a mixture of terror and elation. She responded. She actually responded. "What do I do?" "Read it first," Arthur suggested calmly. "Then we'll talk." The email was brief but profound. "Mr. Blackwell, I received your letter. I won't lie and say it wasn't a shock, even though I have always known I was adopted. Learning the specific circumstances of my biological origins is a lot to process. I've talked it over with my parents, Robert and Margaret, and with my partner David. They're all supportive of whatever I decide. I have questions, many questions, and I'm not sure what a relationship between us would look like, or if one is even possible. But I'm willing to meet you once, to talk, to see if there's anything worth building from here. No promises beyond that one conversation. If you're willing to accept those terms, I'll meet you at Calf Vida on Ventura Boulevard this Saturday at 2 p.m. It's a public place. I'll be bringing David with me for support. You can bring someone if you'd like. Emily." Marcus read the email aloud to Arthur, his voice breaking multiple times. When he finished, he asked, "Will you come with me? I don't think I can do this alone." "Of course," Arthur replied, "but I'll sit at a separate table. This conversation is between you and Emily. I'll be there for support, but this is your moment to be honest, vulnerable, and real. No performances, no scripts, just truth." Saturday arrived with cruel slowness. Marcus had changed his outfit 4 times before settling on casual but respectful. Dark jeans, a simple button-down shirt, no watch or expensive accessories. He wanted Emily to see him as a person, not a wealthy philanthropist. Arthur drove them to Calf Vida in his modest sedan. They arrived 15 minutes early. Marcus ordered a water he couldn't drink and sat at a corner table, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. Arthur positioned himself 3 tables away, close enough to observe, but far enough to give privacy. At exactly 2 p.m., the cafe door opened. A young woman in a motorized wheelchair rolled in, followed by a tall man in his early 30s, with kind eyes and a protective stance. Emily wore a simple sundress, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. She scanned the cafe, and her eyes locked on Marcus. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Father and daughter, separated by 28 years of absence, stared at each other across a small Los Angeles cafe. Marcus's hand moved unconsciously to his chest, as if his heart were trying to escape his ribcage. Emily maneuvered her wheelchair toward the table. David stayed close, but didn't hover. She stopped about 3 feet away, studying Marcus with an expression that was difficult to read, curiosity mixed with caution, openness mixed with self-protection. "You have my eyes," she said finally. Her voice was clear, strong. "You have your mother's smile," Marcus replied, his voice thick with emotion. "And her kindness. She was brave, braver than I ever was." Emily gestured to the table. "May we sit, please?" "Of course." Marcus half stood, awkward, unsure of the protocol for meeting the daughter you abandoned. David helped Emily position her wheelchair at the table, then sat beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. A silent message. "I'm here. You're safe." The silence stretched for several seconds. Finally, Emily spoke. "I read your letter 17 times. I've been trying to figure out how I feel." "I'm still trying. I don't expect you to know," Marcus said quickly. "I don't expect anything from you, Emily. I just... I needed you to know the truth. I needed you to know that leaving you wasn't because of anything wrong with you. It was because of everything wrong with me." "Why now?" Emily asked, her eyes sharp, intelligent. "Why reach out after 28 years? What changed?" Marcus glanced briefly at Arthur across the cafe, then back at Emily. "I met someone who helped me see that I've been running from the truth my whole life, that I've been trying to buy redemption instead of earning it honestly, that every building I funded, every donation I made, was just me trying to fill a hole that could only be filled by facing what I did to you and your mother." "The charitable work," Emily said. "I looked you up. You're Marcus Blackwell, the philanthropist. You've donated over $100 million to causes related to children with disabilities." "Guilt money," Marcus said bluntly. "Every dollar was guilt money. I told myself I was helping people, and maybe I was, but my real motivation was selfish. I was trying to save you retroactively by saving children like you. I was trying to convince myself I wasn't a terrible person, but I was. I am." Emily absorbed this, her expression unreadable. "Do you know what it's like to grow up knowing your biological parents gave you away because you weren't what they wanted?" Marcus flinched as if physically struck. "My parents, Robert and Margaret, they've been incredible. They gave me everything. Love, support, adaptive equipment, medical care, educational opportunities. They fought for me every single day. They taught me that my disability doesn't define me, that I'm worthy of love and respect and all the opportunities anyone else gets." Her voice was steady, controlled, but emotions simmered beneath the surface. "But there was always this question in the back of my mind. Why didn't my biological parents want me? What was so wrong with me that they couldn't handle it?" "Nothing," Marcus said fiercely, tears streaming down his face. "Nothing was wrong with you. Everything was wrong with me. I was 24, selfish, terrified, and weak. I couldn't see past my own fear. I couldn't imagine a life different from the one I'd planned. I thought your needs would destroy my ambitions. I chose my career over you, and it's the worst decision I've ever made. There is not a single day that I don't regret it. Not one." Emily's composure cracked slightly. Her own eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Do you have any idea how many times I've fantasized about this moment? Meeting you, asking you why, hearing your answer. I've imagined versions where you had some noble reason, where circumstances forced your hand, where it wasn't really your choice." She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "But the truth is exactly what I feared. You just didn't want me." "I didn't want the responsibility," Marcus corrected gently. "I didn't want to face my fears. But not wanting you. Emily, I thought about you every single day. I've carried your picture, the only picture I have, for 28 years. I've looked at your baby face and wondered what you looked like now, who you became, if you were happy. And I've hated myself for not being brave enough to find out." David spoke for the first time, his voice protective but not hostile. "What do you want from Emily now? What's your goal here?" Marcus looked at David, then back at Emily. "I don't have a goal beyond this moment. I don't want to disrupt your life or replace your real parents or insert myself where I don't belong. I just wanted to tell you the truth, to apologize, to let you know that your biological father is a flawed, deeply regretful man who made the worst mistake of his life 28 years ago, and who would give anything to go back and make a different choice. But since I can't do that, the only thing I can offer you is honesty. And if, after today, you'll never want to see me again, I'll respect that completely. Emily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. David handed her a tissue from his pocket. She dabbed at her face, composing herself. When she looked up again, her expression had softened slightly. I work in family services, she said. I help families navigate complex situations involving children with disabilities. Do you know what I've learned from that work? Marcus shook his head. I've learned that people are complicated, that mistakes don't have to be permanent, that fear makes people do terrible things, and that sometimes, not always, but sometimes, people can grow and change and become better than they were. She paused. I've also learned that honesty is the foundation of every meaningful relationship. Without it, nothing else matters. I'm being honest now, Marcus said. Probably for the first time in my adult life, I'm being completely honest. I know, Emily said. I can tell. That's why I'm still sitting here. She took a deep breath. I'm not ready to call you Dad. Robert is my dad. He walked me through my first steps with leg braces. He sat with me through 17 surgeries. He taught me to drive an adapted car. He gave me away at my college graduation. He's my dad. I understand, Marcus said. I would never presume, but Emily interrupted. Maybe there's space in my life for a biological father who's finally being honest. Maybe there's room for someone who can tell me about my medical history, about where my stubbornness comes from, about what my biological mother was like. Marcus's breath caught. Rachel, your mother. She lives in Seattle now, remarried, has 2 other children. I found that out a few years ago. She's doing well. Does she know you're here? Emily asked. Not yet. I wanted to meet you first, to see if you even wanted any contact. But if you do, I could reach out to her. Give her the chance to meet you too if that's something you want. Emily looked at David, some unspoken communication passing between them. He squeezed her shoulder gently. She turned back to Marcus. I need to take this slow, very slow. This is overwhelming, but I'm willing to try. Maybe we could meet again in a few weeks. Just talk, get to know each other as people, not as biological father and abandoned daughter, but as 2 human beings who share DNA and complicated history. I would like that more than anything, Marcus said, his voice breaking with relief and gratitude. Whatever pace you need, whatever boundaries you set, I'll respect them all. Emily reached into the bag attached to her wheelchair and pulled out a business card. She handed it to Marcus. This is my work email and office number. Send me an email in about 2 weeks. We'll set up another meeting. And Marcus, she paused, thank you for being honest. It doesn't erase what happened, but it's a start. Marcus took the card with shaking hands, holding it like a precious artifact. Thank you for giving me a chance I don't deserve. Emily managed a small smile. We all deserve a chance at redemption. Even you. But real redemption isn't about how much money you donate or how many buildings have your name on them. It's about showing up honestly, being vulnerable, and doing the hard work of making amends one moment at a time. Can you do that? I'll spend the rest of my life trying, Marcus promised. Emily and David stood to leave. Before she turned her wheelchair toward the door, Emily looked at Marcus one more time. You know what's strange? I see myself in your face, in your eyes, your expressions. That's going to take some getting used to. For me too, Marcus admitted. You're so much more than I ever imagined, and you're extraordinary. I'm just a person, Emily corrected. A person who had good parents, worked hard, and refused to let anyone define me by my disability. That's not extraordinary. That's just living life on my own terms. Then you're braver than I've ever been, Marcus said softly. Emily considered this, then nodded once. Maybe, but brave isn't something you're born with. It's something you choose every day. Maybe it's time you started choosing it too. With that, she and David left the cafe. Marcus watched them go, tears streaming down his face, the business card clutched in his hand like a lifeline. Arthur approached the table quietly. How do you feel? Terrified, grateful, hopeful, unworthy. Marcus looked up at Arthur, his face raw and open. Is this what redemption feels like? Like your heart is being torn apart and rebuilt at the same time? Yes, Arthur said simply. Real redemption hurts. It's supposed to. That's how you know it's genuine. 6 months later, Marcus and Emily walked together through Griffith Park. It was their 9th meeting since that first encounter at the cafe. The relationship was still fragile, still tentative, but it was real. They'd progressed from stilted conversations to actual comfort in each other's presence. Marcus had met Robert and Margaret, had thanked them with tears in his eyes for giving Emily the life he couldn't. He'd reconnected with Rachel, had apologized to her too, had watched as she and Emily spoke on video chat for the first time in 28 years. The wounds weren't healed. Perhaps they never would be completely, but they were being addressed honestly, with no more running, no more hiding, no more performance. I read the article about your latest donation, Emily said, as they paused near a viewpoint overlooking Los Angeles. 40 million to disability rights advocacy. That's significant. It's different now, Marcus explained. Before I was donating out of guilt, trying to make up for you. Now I'm donating because I've learned from you. Because you've taught me what real advocacy looks like. Because I want to support the work you and people like you are doing. Emily smiled. That's growth. Actual growth. I'm trying, Marcus said. Dr. Vance told me that redemption isn't a destination. It's a journey that never really ends. Every day I have to choose to be honest, to be brave, to show up. He's right, Emily agreed. She looked out over the city, the afternoon sun casting golden light across the landscape. You know what's strange? I spent so many years angry at a ghost. The biological father who abandoned me was this villain in my head. But now that I know you, now that I see you as a flawed, regretful human being, I can't sustain that anger anymore. You have every right to be angry, Marcus said quietly. Maybe, but anger is exhausting, and honestly, I don't want to waste energy on it anymore. She turned to look at him. What you did was wrong. You were a coward. You hurt me and you hurt my mother, and you can never undo that, but you're not that person anymore, or at least you're trying not to be. And that effort matters. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how you turned out to be so wise and compassionate, despite everything. I had good teachers, Emily said simply. My parents taught me that people are more than their worst moments, that grace is powerful, that healing is possible. She paused. Besides, holding on to anger would only hurt me. You've already spent 28 years punishing yourself. I don't need to pile on. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the city below them. Finally, Marcus spoke. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think you'll ever be able to call me anything other than Marcus? Emily considered the question carefully. Honestly, I don't know. Dad belongs to Robert. He earned that title through decades of showing up, caring, loving, and fighting for me. But maybe someday you could be something else. Not Dad, but not just Marcus either. Something that acknowledges our connection without diminishing the relationship I have with my real father. I'll take whatever you're willing to give, Marcus said. Even if it's just being allowed to be part of your life occasionally. You're part of my life now, Emily said. Not in the way it could have been if you'd been there from the beginning, but in the way it is now. And that's enough. It has to be enough, because it's all we have. Marcus nodded, understanding the truth in her words. Dr. Vance told me that real redemption happens in small moments, not grand gestures, in choosing honesty over comfort, in showing up consistently, in accepting consequences with grace. He sounds like a wise man. He changed my life, Marcus said. He saw through my facade at that gala and refused to let me keep hiding. He forced me to confront the truth I'd been running from, and then he gave me the tools to actually address it. Emily smiled. Then I'm grateful to him too, because as painful as this process has been, it's also been healing for both of us, I think. They resumed walking, making their way along the park path. Marcus noticed Emily shiver slightly as a breeze picked up. Without thinking, he started to take off his jacket to offer it to her, then stopped himself, unsure if the gesture would be welcomed or would overstep boundaries. Emily noticed his hesitation and laughed softly. "You can offer me a jacket, Marcus. I'm not going to bite your head off for showing basic consideration." Relieved, Marcus draped his jacket over her shoulders. It was a small moment, insignificant to any outside observer, but to Marcus it felt monumental, a tiny act of care that Emily had permitted, a small step towards something that resembled a relationship. As the sun began to set over Los Angeles, casting the park in shades of amber and gold, Emily looked at Marcus and said something that would stay with him forever. "You know what I've realized through all of this? We don't get to choose what happens to us. I didn't choose to be born with spina bifida. I didn't choose to be given up for adoption. You didn't choose to be a terrified 24-year-old facing something you weren't ready for." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "But we do get to choose what we do next, how we respond, whether we hide from the truth or face it, whether we let our past define us or whether we use it to become better. You spent 28 years making the wrong choice, but eventually you made the right one. You stopped hiding. You faced me. You told the truth. That's what matters now." Marcus wiped his eyes, overwhelmed by her generosity of spirit. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Probably not," Emily agreed with brutal honesty. "But I'm giving it anyway. Not because you've earned it, but because I choose to. Because holding on to resentment would hurt me more than it would hurt you. Because life is too short to carry that much weight." She smiled, and it was genuine, warm. "Besides, I've seen what you're doing with your second chance. You're being honest with me. You're respecting my boundaries. You're not trying to buy my affection or play the savior. You're just showing up consistently as a flawed human being trying to do better. That's all anyone can really do." As they made their way back to the parking lot, where David waited patiently by the car, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in 28 years. Peace. Not complete peace. Not the peace of absolution or redemption fully realized, but the peace of knowing he was finally on the right path. The peace of honesty instead of performance. The peace of showing up instead of running. His donations would continue. His charitable work would go on. But now, it came from a different place, not guilt seeking redemption, but genuine understanding of what people like Emily needed and deserved. Not monuments to his own shame, but tools for others to build better lives. And every time he looked at his phone, he saw Emily's contact information saved under a simple title: Emily. Not daughter, not abandoned child, just Emily. A person. A remarkable, resilient, wise person who had somehow found it in her heart to give him a chance he didn't deserve, but would spend the rest of his life honoring. Dr. Arthur Vance had been right about everything. Redemption wasn't a transaction. It wasn't something you could buy with money or gestures. It was a journey that began with honesty, continued with courage, and required showing up again and again, with no guarantees of forgiveness or acceptance. But it was worth it. Every terrifying, painful, vulnerable moment was worth it. Because on the other side of running, on the other side of hiding, on the other side of performance and facade, there was truth. And in truth, despite all its sharp edges and uncomfortable revelations, there was finally the possibility of real connection. As Marcus drove home that evening, He thought about the man he'd been 6 months ago, wealthy, acclaimed, admired, and utterly hollow. And he thought about the man he was becoming, still flawed, still regretful, but finally honest, finally present, finally brave enough to face the consequences of his worst mistake and to build something genuine from the ruins. It wasn't the redemption he'd tried to manufacture through millions of dollars in donations. It was something smaller, quieter, and infinitely more valuable. The redemption of honest relationship, earned one vulnerable conversation at a time. And that, Marcus finally understood, was what really mattered in this world. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the choices we make and the courage required to face our past honestly, please leave a comment sharing what resonated with you most. Subscribe to our channel for more profound stories about human nature, redemption, and the transformative power of truth. Hit that like button and share this with someone who needs to understand that in life, it's never too late to stop running and start being honest. Because redemption isn't found in grand gestures or monuments to guilt, it's found in the brave, vulnerable choice to finally tell the truth and face the consequences with grace.